Lonely Monk Productions. Yo, That's My Jawn is brought to you by Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Take a seat. Let me explain. It's free. It costs nothing. $0 and 0 cents. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Me? I'm doing this from my iPad. It's that simple. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more podcast providers. What's that mean? That means when someone says, hey, how do I find your podcast? You go, you ever hear of a little app called Spotify? Boom, it's there. What's that in your hand, an iPhone? Boom, go to your podcast app. I'm there. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Right from the beginning, straight out the gate, you can make money. Season 1 made me so much money, I could afford a cup of coffee at Starbucks. A grande. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. That's Anchor.fm. I don't know if y'all have heard The Kids Are All Dying by Phineas yet, but yo, that's my Jawn! That's my Jawn! Hey yo, displace the guilt. What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I am your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Jawn Tesh, a.k.a. John C. Riley, a.k.a. Father Jawn Misty, a.k.a. Jawn till November, I'll be Jawn till November. Yo, tell my girl, yo, I'll be Jawn till November, a.k.a. Nate 3.0, back once again with another episode of the show. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. A little later on, I am joined by the fantastic Michael McDermott. Michael has such an incredible story to tell, and we have an awesome conversation that I can't wait for you to hear. What's up, y'all? Well, you may have noticed that last week, there was no podcast episode. No podcast? Well, it's not going away. We're still going to do the occasional little bonus episode in the off weeks, but only if and when I have something to share. And last week, I didn't have something to share. I don't want obligation to force the magic, you dig? Dig. I hope you enjoyed the last episode with Nicole Atkins. There's a moment in there where we're talking about songwriting, and Nicole talks about how early on she was writing songs, but they weren't necessarily the kind of songs that she would want to listen to, until that eureka moment when she found her sound and all of that changed. Why do I bring this up? Well, I bring it up because this interview today with Michael McDermott, this is the kind of podcast that I would want to listen to. There's a lot in here beyond music, about life and expectation and addiction and recovery, about connection, about being human. This is the kind of stuff I've longed for. And that isn't to say I haven't achieved it in past episodes, but this one, I don't know. This one was fulfilling. And we'll get to that in 1 minute. When I was in high school, I was an enormous fan of what could be considered novelty songs. You know, the expected things like Weird Al and Fish Heads and the other brilliant songs you'd find on Dr. Demento, but also TV theme songs and commercial jingles and bands like Herman's Hermits and the Partridge Family and the DeFranco Family and all that good, corny pop. Those were some of my earliest Jawns. As a matter of fact, catch me on a good day, and I might tell you how the DeFranco family's Heartbeat is a Love Beat is the greatest piece of pop art ever created. And I will not allow you to argue with me about that, because that is a fact. But I digress. These songs may hold the key to the creation of the website Yo, That's My Jawn, and in turn, this podcast, because I didn't love these things ironically. I didn't love them with any guilt. No, these weren't guilty pleasures to me. They were my Jawns, and one of my all-time favorite Jawns is the music created by Marcia and Greg and Jan and Peter and Cindy and Bobby. Yes, guys, I am talking about the music of the Brady Bunch. I don't know if you know this or not, but beyond the music featured on the classic 70s sitcom, the Brady Kids released 4 albums. 5 if you count the duet album between Maureen McCormick and Chris Knight. Yeah, I could go on and on about It's a Sunshine Day and Time to Change and the delicious cruelty of making poor little Cindy Brady sing Frosty the Snowman with that signature lisp of hers. Spoiler alert, there are a lot of S's in that song. But today, dear friends, today I just want to take a moment to talk to you about the manic fever dream that is the Brady Bunch cover of Don McLean's seminal classic 1971's American Pie. Folks, if you have not heard this, allow me to describe it for you. The Brady Bunch's version of American Pie sounds like what I imagine a murder cult of children would sound like prior to taking turns stabbing you repeatedly as if you were Julius Caesar. Et tu, Brady? Listening to it conjures the fear, is this real? Am I hearing this? Or am I having a stroke? If you told me that it held the same supernatural properties as the video in the movie The Ring, that your death would now be on the horizon just for the crime of listening to it play, guys, I would believe it. And I love every goddamn second of this song. The madness starts slow and melodically on the piano, as you may expect it to start, but instead of greeting the listener with the story-starting opening lines of a long, long time ago, we are snapped out of our comfortable bed of ivory with a wah hit on the guitar and the janky beginnings of pure 70s variety show swagger. Where are we headed? On a one-way ticket straight to verse number 4, bypassing all of the setup and barreling straight into the Manson error segment of the song. Helter Skelter in a summer swelter, it is madness. But mad as that may be, it pales in comparison to the pure whimsical nature that the Brady clan gleefully delivers the 5th verse line, "Fire is the devil's only friend." I do not understand who asked for this, but I am here for it. They sing through references to Hell's Angels and lighting the sacrificial rite with Satan laughing in delight, and they sing the chorus a few more times, and then they're out. They literally recorded a cover just to sing 2 of 6 verses, and then they bounced. I love this song so much because I can't figure out why it even exists. Who knew that on that one day, when that lady met that fella, that their union would gift humanity with such a curious and confusing piece of pop art? The day the music died. Oh no, my friends, this is the good stuff. My guest today is a singer, songwriter, and musician who burst onto the scene in the early 90s with his debut record, 620 West Surf, and its single, A Wall I Must Climb. His songwriting had critics drawing comparisons to Dylan and Springsteen, and he found himself in the pages of Rolling Stone magazine and the New York Times. The Washington Post called him one of his generation's greatest talents, and Stephen King has said that he is possibly the greatest undiscovered rock and roll talent of the last 20 years. Over the years, he has released over 10 albums, and his most recent release, House Arrest, is a collection of live quarantine recordings and is available streaming on all of the major streaming services. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show today, Michael McDermott. All right, I think we're going. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Michael McDermott. Michael, thank you for joining me here on Yo, That's My Jawn.
Thank you for having me. And I wanted to wait till we started to tell you this. The reason, I get asked to do a fair amount of podcasts, which I almost always say no. So I got sent by my publicist, your links, and I took a chance. I thought, go see what this is about. And I thought, not blowing smoke, I thought you were so amazing. Like your intro, just some random thing. I literally said, this guy's like a star.
Oh my God.
I told my wife as we went on a walk this morning, I said, this guy's like a star. He's smart. He's quick. He's, you were amazing. You sold me on it. Just not knowing who you were. I thought, and I wrote Mike, I said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'll do it.
Holy crap. That is high praise. I'm you can't tell because there's a red light on me, but I'm literally blushing right now. That is.
No, really, whatever you're doing. And you said this was born out of the pandemic. And, and I'm not trying to hijack it.
No, go.
But, the pandemic, there's I was trying to look at it in a certain way when it happened, and everyone was kind of paralytic about what was going to happen next. I always just tried to see it, as like, this could be a great opportunity, and I know a lot of people suffer and I know a lot of people died, but, like I think a lot of great things will be born from it, out of the desperation or the necessity. There's always, throughout history, great moments of crisis, lead to great moments of invention or, anything, so great art. So
completely, one of the things, and I kind of mentioned it here and there, but like one of the things that I've enjoyed, which is a weird word to use about the pandemic, but one of the things that I've really appreciated is it as polarized as everything is, I feel like the music community and people's appreciation of music and performance has kind of been recharged and renewed, right? Like, so many different people live streaming and putting on shows in their homes and stuff like that, and doing what needs to be done to just kind of do what we do and entertain, right?
Yeah. I mean, it reminded us all of what is really important, and music too. Like, well, I'm sure we'll talk about it in a bit, but live streaming was something, I dabbled in, and then it became my thing, and it was great on a level to, rethink about what it is you do and how you do it, and to what level you do it at, and that was really a revelation to me during that time. Is, I think I learned a lot about me and about what it is I do.
Yeah, definitely. So I like to start all these off by kind of just telling the guest a story or something about a connection that I have. And my connection with you is very weird. And there is a 0.0000001 chance you're going to remember this. Okay. But back in God, I can't even remember when it was. We're going to say like 2009, but probably maybe even further than that. I used to host an open mic night in Philadelphia, a buddy of mine. And after a show one night, you ended up there with a bunch of people, and you were just there hanging out. And all of your people kept coming over to me, and they were like, you have to get him to play. You have to ask Michael to play. He'll only play if you ask him. And I'm like, I'm not bothering him. Like, I'm like, if he wants to play, he can play. Don't put this on me. Right. So my buddy and I came over to you, and we were just like, look, if you want to play, you're more than welcome to use our guitar and play, but you don't have to do it. Please just, chill, enjoy your night. And then you played and you fucking kicked ass.
I do think I remember that. I mean, I think there was, I was always in a condition of sorts, but yeah, I think it wasn't what was the name of the bar? Do you remember?
It was Kildare's. It was an Irish pub.
I was going to say it's an Irish pub. Yes, I remember that. I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my weird.
I don't remember playing, but I do remember kind of like, yeah, I remember, and I know who I was. There's a guy, Dennis Shea, who was kind of the mayor of Philly, who takes me around, and you never know where you're going to end up, and that was a place. Yeah,
that's awesome. I have some pictures from that night. Actually, I'll have to send them through so you can check them out. So tell me a little bit about growing up. Like when you were a little kid, what kind of music was playing around the house? Like what was the seed of music?
Wow. So growing up, there wasn't a ton of music. My brother played a little bit, but my folks, like on road trips, like now I defer all radio selections to my daughter, which was never like that growing up for me. It was just, you didn't ever suggest turning off Nat King Cole or the Clancy Brothers or the, whatever. Yeah. So they weren't wildly involved in music. They listened to it, but just kind of on a peripheral level. So music wasn't really a part of my life until like 8th grade. Really, I mean, I think I played violin in 3rd grade. Dabbled in certain stuff, but it was seeing the Rolling Stones that kind of changed. I was in 8th grade, and that blew my mind.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
I never wanted to be Mick, though. I always wanted to be Keith. Which I got the drug addiction part. I did that. And I always kind of I always saw myself as a sideman, but then, as you start bands and lead singers drop out, they call that like the LSD, the lead singer disease. And thing where it's tough to keep them happy. And so I just, out of necessity, again, a moment of necessity, that I just started singing. And, it was pretty brutal for a lot of years. And but then, just because I couldn't find singers to stay in the band.
Yeah. So what were those early bands when's that start? Like high school or?
Eighth grade was the Stones. I became, obsessed with the Rolling Stones. And then from there, it just kind of, I remember in, 12 years old, 1980 or 81, hearing like Bob Dylan. I heard All Along the Watchtower, his acoustic version, which was really just kind of, opened my mind to what a song could be. And the Stones, and they tackled some serious subjects for sure. And but yeah, Dylan was just a revelation. And then, like Springsteen, I heard The River, and I remember going like, wow, and it was just a different type of storytelling. Because my folks, were from Irish descent, and there was a great history of people just tell long stories, the long Irish story, So I grew up with the stories, and so when I heard stories in song, and it was really just a light bulb moment for me,
That's crazy. When do you start writing? Do you like immediately? Like, were you writing poetry or anything prior to this?
Yeah, doing stuff. Yeah, and it was I'm sure terrible, but I was trying to do it immediately, and then so I was in bands through high school, and but just kind of flailing and just trying to make the best of it. And then it came time, to what to do after high school. Now I knew I wanted to write songs, and I was in bands, but all my friends were going to college, and so there was a record store opening up, and I thought that's maybe my way into the music business. I didn't realize retail had nothing to do with the music, and so I worked there, and I was continuing to write songs, and I had a friend of mine who would come back and give me all his English books, all his English literature books. And it was amazing because it was like a college education with he would just, instead of selling them back to the bookstore, he'd give them to me. And I'd be like, oh, thank you so much. But I remember one funny story was writing. Then I started getting in kind of out of, because I was alone and all my friends were gone. I started writing songs by myself. And there was a band that came in for an in-store one time called Metal Church. So I had a demo tape, and I remember going up to him. I'm like, hey guys, would you take this? I mean, what the hell would they have done? Metal Church have done with this mulleted folk singers music? I'm sure they did a line of coke off it or something, and then threw it out of their van or something. But like, it was. But that's how little I knew about how I'm in a small town. I want to get a record deal. I want to be on MTV. How's that? I had no plan at all.
Yeah. What town? What was your hometown? Where did you grow up?
Orland Park, Illinois.
Okay.
And it's the house I'm in now. I grew up in this house. And
holy, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know it is. And when my parents died, they had left me the house. It was underwater, and so I had to. We lost it, and then I was able to get it back through a couple of interesting gray area moves. And so I'm back here, but it was like I never wanted to be here. This is the town I always wanted to get away from. Mm-hmm. And now somehow, I wake up going, how the hell did this happen? I was, I lived in Memphis and lived in Seattle and New York, and so, but I'm back here. But so I said, if I could redo the house, just kind of get rid of all the ghosts and have an extra of sorts, which is what I did. And we gutted it down to the studs and rebuilt it. And so it's still has some history to it, but it's a new house for all intents and purposes,
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. So you're working at the record store, you're giving Metal Church your demos. Can you are you playing out at that point, or are you just playing like coffee shops and stuff?
No, I wasn't. So there was an article in the Chicago Tribune about like the folk scene here in Chicago. And it's very storied, John Prine, Steve Goodman, and, Chris Christopherson discovered Goodman, so there was a history about it. So I thought, there we go. There's the way in. And so I cut out the article and I started just going to every open mic I could. And, that kind of changed everything. And there was a guy who was running an open mic who was kind of a local hero, and I became friends with him. And he, his name was Mike Jordan of all things. And it was like, shortly after the Bulls drafted Michael Jordan. And so it was, weird thing. But he, so he moved away, but he said, you should send your tape to this guy at the Chicago Sun-Times. And I did. And Nate, I'll tell you, it was like, I sent him this thing and I said, hey, I'm friends with Mike Jordan, whatever, a terrible 5-song tape. And then he said, I'm going to come see you in a couple of weeks. I see you're doing a show at Orphans. And he did. And he wrote an article in like the Friday section, and somebody sent it to Brian Koppelman in New York. And 2 weeks after that, he came to Chicago. And a week after that, it was just the luckiest thing in the world.
That's unbelievable. Did you have like a following at that point? Like, no. So it was just by chance.
Yeah. And he came in and he came to see a show. So we got a band together to play at the Metro, and we played, and the show was okay. And because we weren't a real band, it was just a singer-songwriter, some hired guys. And so after the show, I remember he said, yeah, it was good. And I don't know if you know Brian Koppelman. He's, he signed Tracy Chapman. And now he does a show called Billions. He wrote the movie Rounders, so he has
a podcast too, right?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, at the moment. Yeah. And so anyway, so he said, it's good. I don't think I'm going to sign you, but maybe a publishing deal. He's like, why don't you come over to the hotel tomorrow and play me some more songs? And I thought, and I felt, I was 19 or whatever. I was like, oh, that sucks, because then there goes the ship that I thought was pulling in. And then I said, all right. But then I thought, okay, maybe I'll just be a songwriter. I can see that. And so I went down to his hotel the next day. He didn't have a flight till like 3. So I got there at 10, and I played him songs and parts of songs. And I'm like, I was just like a kid, like his life depended on it, saying, oh, here's another one. It's just a chorus. It doesn't have a verse. And I'd play a chorus. And he was just kind of like on the bed, just like, okay, this kid's crazy. And I just kept going and going. And then he had me come to New York, and he just said, I do want to sign, like you have all these songs, so anyway, that was it. And that was the beginning of it.
Did songwriting come easy to you? Was that, because if you had all those songs, was that just like years and years of?
It was just, I was kind of alone. I didn't have any friends, they're all gone. And, I just did it more than, I did it more than I did anything else. And that's how you get good at something. Just do it more than you do anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, it wasn't like, it was just like, Shakespearean pen, it was just grinding it out, and I would just write. And at the end of the day, I'd look back, or the next day I'd look back, and all these pages, and then I'd go, oh, that's a good line, circle that. And then, cobble it together,
What's your, not to jump around or whatnot, but what to that point, what's your editing process? Like, do you have like just fragments kind of that you're like, oh, this piece could kind of go with that? Or,
I do kind of do that. I overwrite everything, I would, so, 3-minute songs might have 10 pages of lyrics,
Yeah.
So it's just it's addition by subtraction at that point. Then I just, I cut it out. And sometimes I'll put it on the floor of going, okay, that is good and that is not. And, just it's a puzzle, really.
Yeah. On the lyric tip, your website with the PDFs of lyrics is one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen. Especially for someone as lyrical as you. But the kind of care that went into the presentation of just, instead of just essentially a copy paste on a website, like right. That's a 100% like an amazing.
We just kind of got that going good, because it was a very shoddy thing until just recently. Kim Kuhlman did an amazing job. She a friend and a fan, and she said, I could put this together nicely for you if you want. Yeah, please.
It looks great. So back to, Brian decides to sign you. What kind of process went into creating that first album? So was there a lot of outtakes?
So that was back in 1990. And, the record cost, $270,000, which is insane. Yeah. Like my last 3 records have been made for, 12 or something,
Right. Yeah.
So it was so different, and it was amazing. And I was a kid, and I, hadn't really done much traveling, and I was out in Los Angeles, and and this is the '90s, so there was a lot of hair and a lot of and I didn't, I was, like a very different. I was an oddball out there, like there was Jane's Addiction, and like my manager managed Megadeth, The Cult, Jane's Addiction, and Michael McDermott.
Wow.
Like what here doesn't belong, so I was always feeling a little out of my element. And, but yeah, it was just, they had Don Gaiman, who would produce all these Mellencamp records, and just, which was amazing. And he worked with Bee Gees and had huge success with Hootie and the Blowfish and that huge record. But yeah, so it was amazing to play with all these world-class musicians, and it was unbelievable. And there was a lot of buzz about that record. And then MTV got on early, and Buzzbin and Kurt Loder, The Week in Rock. And I mean, all this stuff started happening within, in a year and a half ago, I was giving Metal Church a demo tape,
Yeah.
And so it was amazing looking back at it now. I don't even know how I dealt with it. But then it was, in New York, and I was on CNN and Rolling Stone, and all these things. My parents couldn't believe it. I couldn't either. And then the record came out, and it had every opportunity. New York Times, Washington Post, all these great quotes and everything. Nobody bought it.
Yeah.
And as soon as it started, it felt like it was over. Really? And to be washed up at 22 was that was a bitter pill. And like, wait. That was it, and that was it, and it was it really, because MTV is I was a family member there, and then why aren't they playing the second records? It's complicated. They took a chance on you, it didn't happen.
Right.
Not going to take another chance on you. They can only they went out, they walked the plank, and they got sawed off behind them, and so then suddenly no one was playing it, and it was a long way down from there.
Yeah. Was there any moment or any kind of reservation on continuing? Was there any point where you were like, well, I did it and this is it? Like, yeah,
I know. I was talking to my wife the other day about that. There was really no reason I should have kept doing it, but I think I think of my stubbornness, and just like, and it was so many years of being ignored, really, and being on the outside. And I likened it to being like at a house party, and you went out back to the patio where the keg was, and to have a smoke and fill your beer, and then they locked the door on me, and I was like, hey, can I come? Like, wait, I was invited to this party, and now I'm out. And I figured if I just wait in the backyard as long as I can until they either have to open the door or the party's over, and or I find an open bathroom window. And that's what I did. I just waited them out until I was so forgotten about that it was almost like when I came back, it was kind of like a new thing again.
Yeah. How did Stephen King happen upon you? I mean, that was a crazy I was on the road, so grinding out another record, and I was on the road with the Cowboy Junkies, and in a van with one other guy. And anyways, people would bring books and stuff, and, that wasn't uncommon. But then there was this kind of funny looking book, and I looked at it, and I was like, what is this? And I opened the first few pages, and my guitar player said, somebody left it for you, and asked me to give this to you. And I looked at it, and it said, hey, Michael, I'm a huge fan. As you can see, your lyrics are on page 741. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, Stephen King. So anyway, I couldn't believe, I was like, wait, what the fuck is going on? And so anyway, so that was it. And the tour ended a couple of days later, and I just thought, it's so weird. I don't know anything about this. And he's using, and I think I'd kind of forgotten about it, but I was playing basketball in my sister's driveway, and she opened the window and yelled at, I had a phone call, and I was like, I'm in the middle of a game. And she's like, it's Stephen King. And I was like, the writer? And I was like, wait, and why is he calling your house? How does he even know this number? Wait. So everybody at the court, we all stopped and looked at each other. I was like, so I went in, and he was like, hey, man, coming to town, just, big fan, wanted to know if you wanted to go to a Cubs game. And I was like,
Yeah, man. So anyway, so he's like, so I had 2 days to read this book, which is 900 pages. So I was like, oh shit, man, is this out on DVD yet? And so, I powered through it and stayed up forever. And then we met at the Cubs game at Wrigley and sat down, and I was all prepared to go deep on the book, because it was a grind to get through, I think it was 900 pages or something, in 2 days. And so I said, listen, man, got to tell you, book's great. He's like, fuck that. I don't want to talk about that. What are you listening to? And I was like, oh, shit, really? Oh, can I just talk about your book just to prove to myself I read it?
That you did it, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was that. He's a busy guy. He's brilliant. I mean, amazing the way he sees the world, the way he, still works harder than anybody I know, writes 6 hours a day. It's just insanity, And, but then he came down to Memphis and, because he doesn't like to be around on Halloween for his house, as you can imagine. That would be
sure.
A pain in the ass having all these crazies come to your flock, a pilgrimage to your house. So so anyway, we've hung out on occasion. I haven't talked to him in a while, occasional email, but he was a huge, and then he said, I want to write the liner notes to your record. And I thought, man, that'd be great. And so he's, done everything he could to try to help. And that was another thing. And then that third record, we thought, this is great. We got a great batch of songs. Stephen King's on board. And I don't know I think in some ways that, music critics, I think the way we did it with the label, we led with the Stephen King, this effusive three or four pages of praise for me.
Yeah.
And I think that almost backfired in some ways. I think people were like, don't tell me what I.
Oh, are you still there? I got a little connection issue here. Hold on. Sorry about that.
No worries at all.
That was weird. That's never happened to me ever before in my life.
It's the Stephen King thing.
He sent a ghost through the machine.
Dude, you should know to never bring up Stephen King.
But yeah, so you just to kind of double back to where that was,
yes.
you guys led off with the liner notes and with that praise.
Yeah, I did. I don't know what you caught up from that, but I think that, and this is just, just my guess, is it felt like the way that it was almost intentionally ignored, that I think, as critics, we're a little, they pushed back on the Stephen King. And I think there were some comments like, don't send me this thing, because they want to review it with a clear head. They don't want some famous writer telling them how great it is. And then if they don't write to agree with Stephen King, they're going against Steve. It seemed like there was actual kickback on it. And so it really worked. I don't want to say it worked against us, because that thing, the quotes from that will be on my tombstone if there is one. But I think that was kind of for me personally, that was the end of that's when my life started going into total disarray,
Yeah. What is that relationship like with critics? Because there's kind of, that weird dance of you don't want to give them, you don't want to write for a critic, but also you can't let that not enter your head. So what?
You're right. That's a great question. And I don't know if I can answer that honestly, because yes, it does seep in. There is on a subatomic level there, you think, ooh, they might like that, or whatever.
Yeah.
And because I was adored on the first record, adored to ignored, really. And so that was, I think anytime you want to get up on stage or whatever, you have some need to be accepted on a broader level. And so to then be ignored was affected me in a very negative way, and it shouldn't have, So when it went for years without being, then I started doing it. So I'm jumping ahead, but so when in 2016, it was already, I had already kind of, the ship had sailed, and it was the first time, and I was sober, my first record, and clean, and I didn't care really. And I can say that honestly, I just didn't care about them anymore, But it took a long time to shake. Why don't they like it?
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, especially when they're so on board early on, like it's like I didn't change, so I don't know. You know.
Yeah, and there's been few, not many, but that have been with me the whole way. But most of the people, it was as if it's kind of like I didn't exist. You know, like I think everybody was so on it, and when it didn't happen, they were all embarrassed and like. It's like you tell the girl she's the most beautiful thing in the world, and then you won't even look at her at the mall when you see her like the next week. You're like, oh god, why did I say that? I was drunk on it, and they were drunk on it because Irving Azoff, Brian Koppelman, this is the thing. This is going to be the next Bob. He's the next Bob Dylan, and they all believed it. They all drank from the punch bowl, and then it didn't work.
Yeah. You know, you've touched on your sobriety, which going on 6 years now or something like that, right?
Yes, 7. Yeah.
7. Congratulations.
Yeah,
so, you know, as a creative, I'm kind of sober curious right now. Like so just a little Nate backstory. My dad passed away 2 years ago, cirrhosis of the liver, which is the same thing that killed his father. So it was like a moment of, oh, okay. You know, like,
yeah.
And, but so how has that affected your creativity? Like, was there a fear of, well, this is, Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I never, I always had this kind of reverence for, and for what I was able to do or produce. I took it very seriously, and I had a great respect for it. So I never really wrote when I was fucked up. But I mean, I was always kind of fucked. I wasn't in that moment fucked up.
Yeah.
Then 2 hours later, 6 hours before that, I would always write in the windows where I wasn't actually using, and that's not entirely true, but most of the time.
Sure.
So of course I was worried about it. And I had heard people in bathrooms at shows saying, what you going to write about now? Like even people like the fan base at the City Winery were going like, God, I hope it doesn't get boring. Like, because there was a recklessness when you're using and you're drinking. You throw caution to the wind, and there are amazing moments in those moments, like there's transcendent moments you can get to. And because you kind of lose your egoic self and you transcend. Mm-hmm. So like, will I be able to ever tap into that? Well, and man, I got to tell you, the first year of sobriety performing, my legs, instead of, rock pose, they were together, like covering my genitalia. I was nervous, and I was, it took you got to relearn it all. You got to relearn having sex. You got to relearn having conversations with people. You got to relearn, how to be kind. I mean, and what the beauty in that, it's almost like going back to the pandemic thing. It was like, this is a great moment for new things and try to become a different person, or not really be a different person, but recover who that person was that you buried long, long ago. And man, if you're curious about it, and it's funny. And here's the thing. So I Stephen King sober. And so I had written him because I was curious. And I knew my life was getting out of control, getting away from me. So I said, hey, man, and this is pre-email. So letters, So he wrote me back a letter, 8-page letter typed, and it was all about his journey. And I would carry that folded thing. I didn't want my parents, I didn't want to take it with me traveling. So I kept it hidden. And whenever I'd go out and go to my crack houses or whatever, sometimes I'd bring it with. And because that was a currency for me, because I could be like, I'm not like you losers. Stephen King thinks I'm great. And I wouldn't say that to him, but I'd say, hey, you guys want to see that King letter? And man, I got to tell you, in any of the drug houses, in almost every drug house I was in, every crack house, every den of iniquity, there were the great conversations, and there was never more talk about God than in a crack house. I swear to God, And I mean, they say any man who knocks on the door of a whorehouse is looking for God, And that's there's true. There was a search there, and so anyway. But his letter was beautiful, and I would read it, and when I was on 3-day runs or whatever, I'd cry at the end of it and read it and hide it again and pull it out a year later, or whatever. So then when I finally got sober, I came upon it, I think, and I looked at the date, and I can't remember the date, but it was something like 16 years ago.
Wow.
And this is my first few days of sobriety. I thought, you motherfucker, and there was all this beauty and knowledge and wisdom in this folded up piece of paper. And I thought, what an asshole I am, because I just kept going deeper, and I would lean into the pitch, and I was just like going down with the ship. And that was the plan. And, but in all this stuff, and I rereading it, and I wept, and I was reading it, and it was all right there, man. All those, and it resonated. And before, I think I wasn't even, the words weren't resonating. It was just to me to say, this famous guy cares about me or whatever. It was some bullshit.
No, yeah, sure.
I was using it to impress girls at a crack house. Imagine that. That's so yeah. So, but man, if you're curious about it, Nate, I'd love, we could talk off this, and I'd love to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I mean, good. Performing was the one thing I was concerned about, and
you're great too. You're great, and I don't think. I mean, I don't know what your process is now, but like you hooked me. Listening to you talk for 30 seconds, I was like, it stopped me. So you're great. You have something. So it'll only get better. I swear to you. And I hate to sound like that guy. I believe it. Not be worried about that. And it's just more real. It's more like it'll mean more to you going up there and straight. And yeah, it's fucking nerve-wracking,
Well, the funny thing about it is, I used to use it essentially to mask kind of that anxiety of performance or whatnot. And now, like, I just kind of harness that anxiety, and it's just become my personality. So, like,
wait, I explain it. I don't know. I don't know what you mean.
Like, just like the kind of spaced out, like sober, looking into the audience, like right. Just that feeling of a kind of overwhelming feeling of like, okay, all eyes are on me. Yeah. Shit, but now it's just like, okay, let me take that and let's just use that energy. Like,
get into the pitch, dude. Yeah. And I do that sometimes. I'll be like, and I even did this, I can't remember, not even that long ago. I said, I hate awkward silence on stage. So let's have some. And I'll just be, and then people start laughing. I'm just like, that weird, but kind of cool, right? And just like, yeah, lean in. Well, and suddenly you're not so nervous. Like, okay.
As an interview thing, that's one of the weirdest things is that, it took me a long time to realize that pauses are natural and that you can have them in conversation,
right. I know, because kind of we're raised like, always fill the air, but it's antiquated, I think, at this point. But yeah, just like, and I mean, with the advent too of podcasts, long conversations, and that's the amazing thing, because everybody's attention span has gotten so short that when I see Joe Rogan talking for 3.5 hours, I'm like, who? I mean, I literally don't have the time to sit and listen to a podcast. But it's interesting as a species, we're listening to these long things, which is kind of gives me hope that people are taking their time or I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is really, because people aren't reading books.
No. And it's really weird because it's kind of the opposite of the data, because like everything's getting shorter, video clips, everything, except for some reason podcasts, which I think is just that, I think it's just because and this might be a little heady, but because the internet is such like a kind of disconnected thing, any kind of thing you can find in that space that is a real connection, and a lot of podcast conversations are real connections, it's almost like comforting to know that, that's there. And I think that's what people...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be that, because everything else flies in the face of that, I mean, music, and I mean, you get your 20-second sample, and that's, get to the chorus quicker.
Yeah, that's exactly right. New album, last album came out in 2020. Yes. Was What in the World? Was that completed before everything shut down, or were you still in the process?
It was. Yeah, it was. I think. Yeah, it was definitely. And I just went ahead with it because I thought it was of the time, and I thought it should get out, and it was. I'm glad it did. I'm glad it did come out. It it's hard to say if it would have done better in a different time. But, I thought you have a captive audience, everybody's at home. And, it was on the radio all the time here in Chicago, that song, What in the World. And, but I thought, but nobody's in their cars because no one's going anywhere.
That's I interviewed Dan Reed, and he said that was one of the biggest things of the pandemic was Dan Reed's the DJ at 88.5. Yeah. And he said one of the biggest things was that there was no drive time. So like the radio listenership just kind of plummeted.
It did. Yeah.
But they have such a strong member base that they were able to kind of support the station. So
right. Yeah. XBN is kind of I've been to houses in the Philly area and XBN, so like I'm in the house somewhere,
it's a key thing here. So the opening title track, you said it was getting a lot of play on the on the radio or whatnot. I'm sure your fans kind of know your politics, but was there any pushback to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I know. It was startling to me, and my wife took it very personally. I didn't. But yeah, people, you're going to, I lost plenty of people, and I would always, and even before that, people would leave the show. And so I'd open with it. I said, I like to weed out the week early, and so like, good, go ahead and leave. They bought the ticket. I got the money. And so, and there was, it is. And people, the people that had my set of ideas loved it. And, but yeah, it's now a song I don't really know what to do with, because it's still, obviously a lot of those things are all still in play, except the president's a criminal, that's the only one but I just gotta think of a different line, I think. But yeah, it still totally applies,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, it's one of the things that like, I feel like is almost missing, and or maybe it's just something I miss from music, is kind of music that says something. Because like I grew up listening to like all of the great protest songs, and we were talking Bob Dylan, like just songs that mean something. I was a big Phil Oakes guy.
Oh my God, yeah, Phil Oakes, great.
And so like I listened to songs like Love Me I'm a Liberal, and I'm like, where is that now? Like where is like taking just everybody to task? And but I love that song.
Thank you. There are some people doing it, but I think, man, like Will Hogue put out an album that just I think people, I don't know, it's funny, people are even people that have your set of beliefs. I don't think it's something that there's so much of it. I think then now it's going to permeate in the music. I think before, back in the Dylan Phil Oakes days, there probably wasn't as much content in the media anyway. So that was a voice. That was where if you wanted to hear those things, you'd go to, it was like the modern day MSNBC or whatever, but like now it's so everywhere that sometimes, I don't even want to talk about it,
Yeah, I hear you. So I have to ask, Halloweenstein, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, so it was my manager's idea, I think. It was some years ago. We've been doing it for a while now because, I was always hounded by the Springsteen comparisons. And it was something like, so when Rolling Stone wrote their first, I remember, I did an interview with Rolling Stone before that first record. And then my manager called and said, well, we got the, before I went to print, we got the article. I was like, okay, read it to me, and the first line was, when you're a kid from Orland Park, Illinois, and you look like Jordan Knight from New Kids on the Block and sound like Bruce Springsteen, things could be a lot worse for the 20-year-old. And I was like, and I literally wanted to drop the phone. I'm like, my first time in Rolling Stone, that's the opening line. Are you fucking kidding me? I was mortified. So then I was like, anyway, so then I was like, I got to get away from like the short hair, Bruce Springsteen, fuck all that, and this was also 1991 and, Nirvana came out right then, Pearl Jam. And then I went to Seattle and was there for a while. So for years it was like Bruce Springsteen. I thought it would go away eventually, but just never does. And so as my manager was like, let's just like, again, to use that phrase overused, I've used today, this morning with you, but lean into the pitch, like, let's just do a show of Springsteen stuff, because like I love Bruce, but I just couldn't ever talk about it. I stopped listening to it for probably 10 years. I just wouldn't I don't want it to influence me in a way that keeps this thing going. And we just have fun. It's a full band thing and the horns, and it's just a lot of fun. We do actually do some Tom Petty now too, but it's just a fun night of covers, really.
That's really awesome. That is so awesome. So, do you want to go through the Jawntlet here? Do you want to try some of these questions? All right.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So we always start with the one-hit wonders. One-hit wonder number one, Billy Joel or Elton John?
Billy Joel.
You're the first one.
Really?
I've been waiting for it. Yeah. I've had, I was really worried because I was just telling, I had Nicole Atkins on the show, and I was just telling her that like, this is a revised list because I had some that like nobody was picking both, so like it was so uneven, but one of them was like David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar. And of course, everybody was picking David Lee Roth, right? So I was starting to worry about this one. And, I've only done it 3 or 4 times, but thank you for picking Billy Joel.
And it's brilliant too, the Jawntlet. I love it. Okay. So what else?
Number 2, Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Oh, man. Yeah, Debbie Harry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that one's tough. What's
the scoring on that? How many is it? Even?
That's pretty even. As a matter of fact, that's probably the one that people have the hardest time picking.
Really? Yeah, that's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner?
Oh, Aretha Franklin.
Yeah, definitely. This one's so heavyweight that this might be the one that gets bounced. Yeah. Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Oh, Nirvana. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a tough one too, because I love them both. I think, Nirvana. Yeah.
Okay. Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks?
Stevie Nicks from me. I could see why a lot of people would say Janis Joplin. My daughter's got a Janis Joplin. Oh, she has both on her wall, and she's Stevie, I know, right? She's got AC/DC. I mean, I'm like,
you did it right.
I know, right?
You did it right.
I mean, she still loves Billie Eilish and all that stuff, but yeah. So she's got both of those. That's great. Yeah, but I would pick Stevie Nicks. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Beatles or Stones?
The Stones for sure. But I got to tell you, my daughter's gotten me into the Beatles. Like I was just like almost anti-Beatles for a long time, just because back in the day it was like you had to pick one. It was like you couldn't for the Cubs and the White Sox. You got to pick one. So I was always the Stones were my guys, and they were dirtier and less. And the Beatles, like as you're growing up, like playing guitar, and I have a limited capacity, and the Beatles like. So anyway, I'm rambling. My daughter's all into the Beatles, and she's also learning how to play guitar. And I'm like, you're killing yourself. Like, I don't even know some of these chords. Like, like this is why don't you, like I could teach you Jumpin' Jack Flash in a second, that'd be way easier on you. But she knows she's all about the Beatles and Eleanor Rigby. I'm like, I don't know if I can help you. So I think that's one of those things though, that I felt, like the Beatles were like this kind of almost otherworldly, like I can't do that thing. Mm-hmm. But when I heard Stones, I could do that. I could do that. And that's in Mix, a brilliant lyricist when, Sympathy for the Devil is stacked. Yeah. I mean, really amazing lyrics. When he put his mind to it, he was as good as it gets. But yeah, it's tough now because the Beatles are, when you hear those songs, everyone's just so good. They're like the perfect songs, The Beatles, like Yesterday and all that stuff. I hear my daughter playing. I'm like, God, I thought that, anyway. So I will, for my vote, for the Jawntlet, the Rolling Stones.
Perfect. So I'm going to ask you a question that I've only asked one other person, and it's only when I know that somebody might have an opinion on this. Okay. And I've only just learned it in the past year, but Wild Horses by the Stones, written by Mick and Keith or written by Graham Parsons? There's a conspiracy theory that Graham Parsons actually wrote it. in a session with all of them and just
really?
let them have it. Yeah.
I've never heard that. I believe it. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I could see him coming up with maybe the idea for the song or a line. It is very, I mean, yeah, it's so identified with Mick and Keith. And I used to read when I was in like 8th grade. I would do like anything I could in history class. You write about a moment in history, I would write about the Rolling Stones, like anything, like in math class, like the 1-4-5 chord, so like whatever it was about the Stones. Now Graham Parsons, I mean, obviously there's a lot of mystery about him anyway. And I like, there's a, do you know the designer that people wear in Nashville a lot, the rhinestone?
The nudie suits.
Yes. Yeah, so that was made by this guy Manuel, and I know Manuel, and he claims he was with Graham out in the desert burning his body too. So, I mean, like there's so many mythic stories about Graham. It's hard to believe that. I don't know. Because I know Keith and he were friends. Yeah. It's totally possible. I mean, that's why it's probably a good conspiracy because it's possible. What do you think?
I didn't have any thought on it until like they started, like the guy who wrote the article had like all of these clues, and there's like supposedly a reference to Graham's sister in the song and stuff like that. And now I can't not see it. Like it's really weird. I'll have to try to dig that article back up and forward it through to you. Like it's really, really fascinating though. There was
Graham's daughter, Polly, and I were friends, and she, great girl, attractive lady, and she was sober. And when I was in LA, she was helpful to me. I mean, I wasn't ready, like you have to be ready, as they say, but she was great. And we never talked about her dad. It was like when I was, when I first met Jakob Dylan, like I was going to his house, and they said, don't talk about Bob, and I was like, really? Like, okay, because it's like a thing. And Jake is so funny, like, and it was funny, you'd be in the house and like, they're making dinner, and you go to people's houses, like you'd look at their walls and photos and stuff. And at one point I was like, just looking, and I was like, and because my brain forgot where I was. For a second, there was Bob in this, like in this family photo. I was like, oh yeah, of course. Okay.
Yeah. And then it's almost like not mentioning it becomes awkward.
So Jacob would bring it up, and then we talked about it and how he thought Springsteen's a better writer than his dad. And I was like, dude, you're out of your mind. Like, and then Jake, what he did when that record came out, and he was, but one of his funny bits was that they'd say, with every interview he was getting asked, what's your favorite record by your dad? What's your favorite record by your dad? So he would always say Moondance. That was
awesome. There's a great Dylan quote I read one time, and I forget what album it had just released, but he was interviewed in Rolling Stone, and they were like, asking what his thoughts were on how the critics kind of responded to it. And he said something along the lines of, when someone else releases an album, it's not put up against Blonde on Blonde, which was like a stellar thing. And I think the same thing with like Jacob and Sean Lennon and like, guys who have put out quality music, like, yes, there might have been kind of a door because of who their father was, but also the threshold of what you have to live up to. Like you can't be mediocre, like because you will just get dragged for it. And I've always really appreciated that, those guys have kind of pushed through it. There's guys who haven't, it's a different, he's very, I think he's got a really good grip on it. I was arrested at a Wallflower show, and that was, Jake and I haven't been friends in a while, but I still love him, and but he's got a really good grip on it. But yeah, it's a different because I wonder because that record was huge, that Bring It Down the Horse album, and it was great, and I think that because he couldn't get signed to save his life. And then, little known story though, Brian Koppelman had him come to New York. He was playing in Cantor's Deli, and had him come to New York. And Jake told me this independently, of Brian did too, but
he said by the time he got home, he had, every major label had left him an answering machine message, like just because they heard, Koppelman's got him coming to New York, and then
wow,
yeah, it was just, so he ultimately went with, I can't remember what label, Interscope or something, but yeah, it was hard for him to say to Brian, like, and Brian was cool about it, and but yeah, so that was a classic industry thing, like they didn't want to miss out on something, but he couldn't get arrested, and then anyway, it went on to huge success. But that was it. Sorry.
That's wild. Yeah. All right, the final one-hit wonder: Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
Yeah, I got it. Oh man, my daughter's gonna kill me. I think I'd go. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody, I guess we got to go with that, I think. Because, but I haven't heard Stairway to Heaven in a long time. And I hear Bohemian Rhapsody probably every other day in this house.
Oh, really?
So, well, I'm a little worn out on it. But it's a brilliant piece of music, without question.
Yeah. The production of that centerpiece of that is just...
And that's another otherworldly thing. Like, as a kid, you wouldn't go, like, I want to do something like that. Like, right. It's so, like... yeah. So, but yeah, I guess you got to go with that. I mean, Stairway to Heaven's pretty amazing too, but those are good, man. I love those. Okay.
All right. So the top 10 countdown, as we kind of discussed as things started here, Jawn can mean anything you want it to be. So, right. So number one, what was your first Jawn? What was the first thing you were obsessed with?
The Rolling Stones. Yeah.
Yeah.
First Jawn would have been, yeah. And like, cause I was the geek with the concert shirt, the jersey, with the white sleeves and the black, the tongue, the hat, the pins, the jacket, the wallet, all Rolling Stones.
All right. I love it. Number two, what's your current Jawn? What are you into right now?
Well, so last night we watched the finale of Ted Lasso. I guess I would say that. So do you watch it? Do you watch Ted Lasso?
I'm halfway through the first season. I'm a little behind.
Okay. So yeah. So we watched the first episode and I was kind of like, I don't get it. Like, and I wasn't into it, and then put it away. And then people just kept talking about it. And I thought, okay, well, to my wife, let's watch the second one. And then we got into it, and I find it really surprisingly, it's funny, but it's surprisingly emotional for me. And as you get deeper into it, Nate, I can't tell you, but you stick with it though. Yeah.
All right. We'll double back in. Back in. Number three, what was your first concert?
The Rolling Stones.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah. November of 1981, Tattoo You tour. The Neville Brothers opened. The first time I smelled weed. That was it. Changed everything.
That's a life changer.
Right.
Number four, what was the last concert you went to?
The last concert was Sinead O'Connor at City Winery in Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's amazing, and she's so broken, and she's so beautiful though. Her brokenness I find really compelling and amazing and heroic in some ways. I do. And she's fearless.
Yeah.
She's something else, I think.
That's awesome. Number five, what was your favorite concert you've ever been at?
I think, I don't know what year. Probably and I don't know if it was the most amazing show, though. I think it was probably great, but I remember the moment. It was, I think it was Joshua Tree tour. It was just something really almost really heightenedly spiritual about that. And I remember at one point, I think when he was doing Bullet the Blue Sky, doing the slapping down those dollar bills or something like that, really just gave me chills. Yeah, and I remember that vividly. Yeah. So that would be it was probably because it was just the most unique. Oh, you know what though? Actually, another U2 show, the early first run of the Zoo TV tour, that was a mind fuck. That was with all the visuals. I'm going to go with that.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
So you do 1990, 91 or something.
Yeah, it sounds about right. That sounds.
What's yours? Right. What's yours?
So it goes. I have two answers. All right, one or actually kind of three. One is I don't know if you remember the Spectrum in Philadelphia.
Sure.
But the last few shows at the Spectrum, Pearl Jam, I think did 3 nights there.
Yeah.
And I was there for not the last night, but the night before, and it was just. It was like you said, it was otherworldly. Like there was an energy that I've never kind of experienced before.
What year?
God, 2010 maybe or something like that. 2000, somewhere around there. But my honest answer, and it's kind of sappy and sentimental, is I saw Beck at the Exponential Music Festival in 2014, and it was a weekend of what was my girlfriend and I's kind of first experience going out somewhere. Not in a car or a bar or something like that.
Right,
it was our first experience. And it started to rain. We had lawn seats. And we just started dancing in the rain, and like every song was just an experience, and that's definitely that whole experience. Independent of what was going on stage.
Right. That's beautiful.
Was next level. Number 6. Who have you never seen live that you would love that you wish you would have, living or dead?
Wow. I don't know. The Doors are coming to mind. That would be an interesting show, I think. I never saw the Who. I think the Who back in like the late 60s would be amazing.
Yeah. I sadly, I had tickets. I went for the Who, and it was the year that Entwistle passed away, and they had to reschedule the date. But it did give me one of my favorite concert moments, which was Pete introducing the band, and he's, he introduces Zach, and then on drums, and then or maybe it was Jason Bonham. I can't remember who was with it. I think it was Jason Bonham. But then he introduces Pino Palladino and now replacing another Who corpse is Pino Palladino. And I was like, my God, the man just passed away like a month or two.
I know. I saw Pete and Eddie Vedder at House of Blues in Chicago doing it was some benefit or something. It was pretty cool. But wait, you sparked another idea. The Who. I remember I think it was 1980 or something, and I remember the Who's record, It's Hard, and it was their farewell tour, and I couldn't get tickets, and I wept because I couldn't get tickets to their farewell tour. And, what are we?
Little did you know.
40 years later, and they're still playing. Like,
that's right.
Every tour was their farewell tour, and I still haven't seen them.
You still. Number 7, name an unappreciated, John. Name something you wish had more kind of shine to it, more focus on it.
Ooh.
Besides yourself, sir.
What? Yeah.
I said besides yourself.
Besides myself. I would say musically, probably. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, sure.
I would say Matthew Ryan, Ike Riley. Those are two, and they're friends of mine. Those 2 guys, I think, that are great, that are underappreciated. Yeah.
Excellent. Number 8, what's your favorite album?
Oh, man. Well, it wouldn't be Blonde on Blonde. It might be Bringing It All Back Home by Bob Dylan. What's weird is one might be All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes. Do you know that? The Pete Townsend album?
Yeah.
I think it's just brilliant. And I think what struck me about that is that it's so much like, and it's not like a poetry to music thing, but it was beautifully poetic, where it didn't rhyme necessarily. It was just kind of like, really, I don't know. I haven't heard it in a long time, but that record fucked me up for a long time. And So that's interesting that I would even say that. Otherwise, Bringing It All Back Home, Achtung Baby's got to be up there. Peter Gabriel's Us album. Yeah.
All right.
I think, okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect.
I'm thinking all day about it. I'm going to go, I should have said, yeah.
Exactly. That's one of those ones you're in the shower and all of a sudden it's like,
oh, damn, how did I get that. Yeah.
Number 8, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they release, even if you have to be unapologetic for it or apologetic for it.
Oh, wow. There's not a lot, I would say. I think there is it's such a lame answer, but, Dylan, I'll always go check out. Tom Waits, I'll always go check out to see what he's doing. Peter Gabriel, I'll always go check out. Even if I don't go deep on it, I'll check it out. There are some peers that I like a Jason Isbell, I'll always go see what he's doing. But I don't want to, and I do protect myself. I don't listen to a ton of stuff because I don't want to, because I have a way of just kind of becoming that thing. Like I hear a whatever song, and then suddenly I'll be like, wait, who is that? And I'll be like, oh, it's a ripoff of that song that my daughter was just listening to. It's like I'm really bad with that. So I try not to consume too much of that. But there are people that I'm always kind of like secretly kind of keeping an eye on.
Yeah. I got you. The 10th and final question of the top 10 countdown. What is your favorite Jawn of all time? Again, can be anything you want to think.
My favorite Jawn of all time. Now I'm going to. So lately, my favorite Jawn is Raymond Chandler.
Yes.
I've been it was pandemic based, but I've been very just consuming so much of him, and Philip Marlowe, man, to me, like he's become part of my psyche. Like I think like Marlowe, that was crazy, not healthy. That's still me trying to be somebody else than I really am. Also, I have this new way of making popcorn that I love, which is organic oil in a whirly pop with heirloom popcorn. It's the best. Those are my two current like things that I'm very heightenedly focused on.
I love it. I'm gonna have to pass this recipe on to my girlfriend. She is a popcorn connoisseur.
Whirly pop, $25 at Bed Bath & Beyond. Just Whole Foods, the organic oil. It's not too bad. Sometimes a little coconut oil too, if you get bored. But then the heirloom popcorn, I think it just cooks better than regular sized popcorn. Organic heirloom popcorn, and also at Whole Foods. It's
great. It's great. So what are you working on now? What do you got coming up?
So I have a record almost ready to be mixed to come out in May of 2022. I wrote my memoirs during the pandemic, which was very interesting and a really arduous journey because so much of it was unpleasant. However, I think most of it's hysterical. One of the main characters in the book, not even a main character, but a guy I ran with who was kind of part of much of the mayhem. I changed his name, and I hadn't talked to him in a while, and we were talking and piecing together the stories of some of the mania. He's out in LA, and so we were reconnecting and laughing and texting and emailing and all that. And like, dude, what was that thing at your apartment and blah 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 when he lived here? But anyway, so then 2 weeks ago, I texted him. I said, "Oh my God, this other maniac that we used to party with, was found unresponsive and died."
Oh my God!
I wrote him that. I said, Kevin passed away, and he was like, "Fuck, man!" Like, and then so that night I sent him that text out in California. His wife and 2-year-old daughter got up in the morning on Saturday morning to go wake up and start their Saturday. He was dead on the couch.
Fuck.
And I know, dude. And it's like, oh my God, 52 and fuck. So I'm glad in some way that we got this part of the book, even though it's not like flattering and it makes us out to be a couple of stark raving drug addict lunatics, so that's been, so I've done that. And so I've never written a book before. And so I had Owen King, who's Stephen King's son, kind of line edit it. And then TJ English, who's a nonfiction. He wrote the book The Westies, and writes this true crime.
It's a familiar name.
Yeah, New York Times bestseller. So he then went through it, and so I'm relieved that they both really loved it. And he had said, "Boy, when you get into that drug part of the book, it just hums." Because it's better than just crazy drug stories, Yeah. So that's gonna come out in September of 2022. Because then I still have some editing to do on that. And but yeah, I mean, it's and it's going deep on your own life is something everybody should do. I think everybody should write their own story, whether anybody wants to read it or not. You have to confront a lot of things about yourself, and most aren't pleasant. And so that was really interesting and gross, and I'd feel nauseous sometimes reliving some of the people I hurt and the decisions I made in those moments, and the people I've lost through that, drugs and drink, man. I mean, it takes everything. It really just does. And I would always joke that check's in the mail for me too. When you abuse yourself for that many years, it's hard to, nobody gets out of here alive is that. And, but yeah, so it's just, it was really interesting for me, a learning experience, really, just to learn what a dumb monkey can do.
Yeah, going through that, are you able to kind of look at that with kind eyes, or can you forgive yourself?
That's the process, yeah, I mean, but sometimes I would go in, and my wife even knew. She's like, "You okay?" I just, after spending the day writing, I'd just be like, God, because it doesn't feel like me at all anymore. I don't feel literally like writing about somebody else. But then, you have those moments where you go, that was you, dude, and it's amazing that I'm even here to write about it, So that'll be an interesting, thing. I don't think I'm going to try to get a publisher. I think I'll just sell it as part of shows and I don't know if, I don't know. I was worried when Owen and TJ both said it's great, I was, because I said, be merciless, if it's going to be embarrassing, don't let me put it out there. And so they were great. And they, and they all had, get rid of that. You don't need that. That's dull. You don't need to talk about basketball. You don't have to, so, so that's been really helpful. So.
That's great. That's great. So how can these people find you on the internet? Give them a path.
Yeah, the website is www.michael-mcdermott.com. And, Twitter is, I don't know, just at Michael McDermott. And that's it. And I'm just regular old Google.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Michael, thank you so much for this was an amazing conversation. And,
hey, thank you. And dude, keep doing what you do. You're a special person. I can tell that. And I've met a lot of special and I've met a lot of unspecial. And I know what category you fall in. So, and watch the drinking.
How fantastic was that? My thanks again to Michael McDermott for not only coming on the show, but for blessing me with such an amazing conversation. You can find Michael on the internet at www.michael-mcdermott.com and on Twitter at Michael McDermott and on Instagram at Michael McDermott Music. And you can find Michael's music on Spotify, Apple Music, and available to purchase on his website. And if you're in the Philadelphia area, I'll be playing a show with former guest Scott Miller on Halloween night at Tex-Mex Connection in North Wales from 4 to 7 p.m. What's that? You can't make it, but you still want to see it? Well, you're in luck, as the show will be streamed live on the Yo, That's My Jawn Facebook page. Who says I never give you anything? If you have not already, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Just go there and hit subscribe. You can join us weekly. And as always, if you want to show off just how cool you are and you want to earn yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for Citizenship of the World, you can do so just by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/yothat'smyjawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Yo That's My Jawn and find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel and like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. Like and subscribe and like and subscribe and like and subscribe. We want to hear from you. Reach out and touch some Jawn. Another day, another episode. Thank you for spending a little time in my universe. I got some cool things on the horizon, and I hope you come along for the ride. Blue skies. Until next time, everybody.
Displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be measured. You ain't being judged. You won't get it.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production, written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by Phil Tyler Music featuring Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Natalie Runkle, and the incredibly brilliant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com. Or you can leave an audio message for us and possibly hear yourself on a future episode by visiting anchor.fm/ytmj/message. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure and shout to the world, yo, that's my Jawn.